I'm good at punching people. I'm not. Oh, wait a minute. Am I on? I think that's backwards. I think you're all seeing. Oh, you are. That's why I was trying to get on there. Boom! Look at that. Oh, yepers. Look at that. That was a bit wild and crazy. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah. So, oh look, I'm wearing an Ian shirt. It's the old logo. It's not even the new logo. Um, So I am sharing thoughts. Why am I sharing thoughts? And why are we at the house? And why is blah blah? Because I don't have my kids this weekend. It is a weekend, and I'm sick. I'm still recovering from a little bit of a cold, and yeah, there you go. So I'm going to cover a couple things. Hey, if you don't know me, I'm Joel Letlow. This is Evolution JKD. I'm guessing you do know who I am. Yeah, you like the Alchemy Neuro. Hopefully, maybe Ian will jump on here. I don't know. Oh, he did. He's already on. He told me to flip my screen. Yeah, sorry, man. I wasn't on. I had to look. I'm doing it. Look. This is me running this job, which is why it's all Cucamonga. Got good lighting though. I think. Look, I got my plant back. My plant back. We're getting enough daylight now that I can bring that thing back up here. Um, Hey, if you have not done it yet, then you should go check out my instructional video on Teachable. Evolution JKD. I don't know, it's on there. If you go to my website, evolutionjkd.com, you can go into there and find and get to the link. If you go to Teachable and you type in Evolution JKD, I'm pretty sure you can find it. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going through here. So I wanted to go through just sharing some thoughts, and the first big one is uh, being sick and how that impacts it. So look, a lot of people. I'm gonna. You're just gonna have to bear with me on this one. Hey, how's the sound? I put the speaker on there, and hopefully it's all working great. So give me some thumbs up or something in there. Give me in the comments. Maybe you get comments. There's a couple of you on there. Just hoping that that's in there. Oh, good, great, fantastic. Because sometimes I sound like an idiot a lot of times, but we don't want it to be the equipment's fault for me sounding like an idiot. So being sick in the martial arts world and in the Jeet Kune Do world, there's all this stuff about like I can kick your ass and I'm good here and I'm the best and this is the best martial arts and so I'm 6'1", 200 pounds ish. I'm not even in the best shape of my life. Um, but I am sick. But my normal 100% 6'1", 200 pounds ish, I can kick your ass. Probably if you're watching this, I can kick your ass. But being sick really drops me down a lot. So I might not be able to kick your ass. I'm doing way better today, but like yesterday, day before, not so great. Really congested, just blah. And I think that's a big factor to think about. So if I can, beat most people on the planet in a straight up fight, that's still it's still kind of crazy because um, if I could beat 99% of the people, there's 8 billion people. That's like 8 million people, something like that. They could still probably beat me. If we drop it down to like maybe 25% of that's really in the fight dynamic of being able to do it, and I could beat 99% of them, it drops down to something like, what, 800,000 or something? 80,000 tops, maybe? But that's still like, at my absolute best, there's still a crap load of people on this planet who very likely, coin toss, can beat me. And I think that's something to really think about. And a lot of people don't acknowledge that. And then, especially, I'm a Sifu master, whatever. My martial arts is so amazing. People don't acknowledge the fact that they can get their butts kicked. And that sometimes, like I am right now, you're not 100%. That's really big. And I think that if you understand that, you can come back to your training with a different mindset that's going to be healthier and more productive, and not just about trying to stroke your own ego and give yourself more of a delusion to think that you're invincible, because we're not. I mean, like, give any of you a gun or a car, or probably a baseball bat, uh, and I'm losing even at my 100%. Because there's tools that offset that. That's why warfare is involved the way it is, and has progressed, because people can fight. Look, everybody's having a little nice chatty chat. If you haven't checked out this before, Alchemy Neuro is in. Some of you should have seen him if you've been checking out the channel. He has his own channel, and it's on sound production. It's pretty cool stuff, and he has a lot of fun and does really cool stuff. So you should check him out. And so I got really excited earlier today, and I realized, crap, I've got like 4 hours until these thoughts came out. But I did write down some thoughts, and some of it was me thinking back to, like, going against other people. And there's always well, how would you do against this person? Or how would you do against that person? So I can tell you, I've taken fencing lessons, and I get schooled. Like, in fencing, totally me to you being the fencer, you proverbial being a fencer. My fencing coach just totally crushed me. Like, not even trying. Like, I got better, but which do I prefer? I've never actually done kendo. I've done fencing, but I gotta tell you, oddly enough, I never got into kendo because it was really damn expensive. Not that fencing's not expensive because of the equipment that's necessary, but at the time I was around kendo, I didn't have like 2 quarters to rub together, so it was coming in there. I have trained in fencing, and like I said, I would get my butt kicked in fencing. Now, there's always like, well, how would you do against a boxer? And there is a good saying that I love to borrow: don't try to outbox a boxer. Don't try to out karate a karateka. Don't try to outthrow a judoka. Don't go into someone else's game and try to outdo them, because that's what they do. They're experts in that world. Now, there is some crossover. So if we go into boxing, boxing is a little bit different. I can throw hands. I'm pretty good at throwing hands. But I'm going to tell you 2 big things on that one. Number one, just my general state of my cardiovascular right now is not super high, combined with being a little bit congested. I don't know if I sound weird or not. I mean, I sound probably weird, but weirder. That combined with the fact that if you jump into a ring, man, if you've never been into a boxing ring, those things just suck the life out of you. They just right out of you. You get in there and you bounce around on a hardwood floor, something like that, and you get into a ring and it just pulls all the energy out of you, because they have that give to them. And that little bit of give in there. I gotta say, I'd probably last for maybe a minute. And I think most of that is because boxers tend to be a little bit more in a sport mindset. And I'm being general here, but they tend to, and I'm giving myself a lot of like credit for this at the current moment. I could just as easily go down in about 13 seconds like Mike Tyson did to, that's Sphinx? Maybe Sphinx. You want to fight in like 13 seconds, I think. Maybe 23 seconds. I could absolutely go down that fast. But a lot of boxers will come out and kind of feel you out. I could probably fake it long enough, and I'm good enough with my hands, even on a shitty day like today. And even not being in the conditioning to go into a boxing ring, I could probably hold on for a minute before they just lit me up. If they were dumb enough to step into something, then, hey, kudos for me. But I'm not talking about, like, low-level amateur boxers. I'm talking about like somebody who's my size and is a pro boxer and is top tier. It makes a difference. You take Mike Tyson, who would be about the same weight class. I'd be, I'm a little over 200 pounds. So you're fighting guys who are 205, 210, 200, that range. I might go a minute right now. If I were to go wrestling now, I wrestled. I wrestled for 5 years. I wrestled in junior high and in high school, and I was quite good. Wrestling is a wonderful sport. It's so much aliveness, and there's so much science given to it. I was watching. So I watched earlier today. There was women's collegiate championship going on, and I'm just watching some of the wrestling matches, and that was really fantastic. It was on a channel called Flow Wrestling, so look that up. They've got it on there. One, it's amazing that women are now wrestling and are have it so much so that the sport has evolved so much to include and give them their own way to participate in this wonderful sport. I love wrestling. I really found a lot of benefit to it. That being said, the science and the continued progression over the 32 years since I wrestled, 33 years, something like that. They're way better now. Like the average, I used to say I was top 10%, not the top 1%. I think that's probably gone down. If you compared me when I was wrestling to all of the wrestlers now, I might be down a little bit. I might not just because of the numbers. I don't know where I'd be. I think the top tier people are just on a way higher level than we used to be. You have people like the great John Smith, who, if you don't know who that is, you should check him out. Is just going up. Now, I think if I went against a really good wrestler about my size, I'd last all of about 20 seconds because I think a wrestler would just go, screw this, and would monkey with me for about 10 seconds and then figure out, wait a second, this old guy's going to gas out, can't breathe right, has nothing in the tank. I'm going to give it to him, and would just tear me up. At which point I might try to rip their eyeball out or something like that. That's how I'd win. Wrestling a little bit different. It's a different thing. I really love wrestling. I had a bunch of comments on the channel today, and I hope some of those some of you are in there that were maybe making those comments earlier. Really fantastic. I have a lot of people who are keyboard warriors. They are just dipshits, to be perfectly honest. And today was not. Today was a lot of really people who maybe did not have a lot of experience or only had limited experience. But I tell you, they really had some just good, genuine questions, and just coming from people who are like, hey, you're a guy who seems to have a little bit more knowledge in this world, and what are your thoughts on this? I have a little bit of experience, and I really enjoy that. And if you have any questions, then pop them up in the comments. I can see the comments over here, and I'll get to them. Yeah, I don't. So there's a marvelous and wonderful. Martial arts is good for physical combat, but for psychological and tactical combat, it would be interesting to see Alexander the Great and Sun Tzu in a battle of. I think that's the wits. I have a heart. I have like emoji things on there. I don't know what's else going on. Uh, I yes and no. I would agree that when you're looking at a large group, like a battalion-sized, movement or a company, you've got lots of bodies. You've got dozens or hundreds or even thousands of people and various elements coming in there. Yes, but like I've read The Art of War, I read the Book of Five Rings. Those are things that Bruce Lee was looking at. Those are things that Jerry Petit gave to me. There's other things that I've done and experienced that go through there. When I go through, this is my army. So this is a unit. This is a unit. This is a unit. Everything is in there. I have different elements, and I look at it that way. And for those of you who have trained with me, probably think back and go, yeah, that is kind of the whole thing. we do look at the body as multiple units, and we do look at that. It is a micro version of a larger scale combat. You're, my body being different elements. I got this hand and my feet, and I've got knees and elbows, and I've got a retreat, and there's mobility. All those things are in there, and the tactics used, the same. You'll see them for a one-on-one fight. You'll see them. A great example is you'll see it in sport like football. You look at football and you see 11 guys versus 11 guys, and or 11 players and 11 players, and they're going against each other. You'll see the 5 ways of attack included in all that stuff. And then you just extrapolate and go bigger, and you've got thousands of people with tanks and jets and all that kind of stuff. Is it different? Absolutely, 100%. But I think the strategies and tactics are in there, and you can see a lot of that stuff crosses over to all of them. If you're going to do an attack by draw, it works for an individual, it works for a team sport, and it can work for a very large group, like an army versus an army. If you're going to do all of the other stuff, it's going to be there. Let's see. Yeah. Harry's totally right on there. The same thing. And yeah, everything scales. Ian, same thing. Everything is going to scale. So that's when you look at the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, then, which is just sort of a reference book. It shouldn't be taken to heart. That's going to go into one of my other things of what is Jeet Kune Do. Because I get this one a lot, and I've been getting even more. It seems as though people are like, "Oh, well, Jeet Kune Do is Bruce Lee's blah blah blah." Yes, but that can be said for anything. That can be said for everything, and I think really big is the mindset that Jeet Kune Do or Kyokushin karate or any martial art is mystical mumbo jumbo stuff, and it's a training program. It's a very simple way to think about it. It's a training program. How do you cultivate skills? And that's really the big one. And inside of that, if you say, hey, look, I'm a football coach, or I'm a basketball coach, or I'm a wrestling coach, or I'm a boxing coach, boxing coach is a pretty great way to do it. Boxing has rules for the sport, but inside of that, you have different types of boxers. For Jeet Kune Do, it is a training methodology that you go through there. That includes the physical elements, because I know a lot of people out there like, it's just a philosophy. No, I think Steve Golden said that. Who's one of the few first generation JKD guys still alive. He said, we didn't just go into a room and like philosophize about stuff. Like they went in and moved. They were applying stuff and really kind of working through all that. That was a big deal for them. So yeah, Jeet Kune Do training methodology. That's a way better deal to do it. I've done different things. If you're going to the gym and you're trying to gain muscle mass, right? What kind of muscle mass are you doing? What kind of exercises are you doing? What is the purpose? What is the goal behind there? If you take a power lifter versus a bodybuilder versus someone who is lifting for sport specific, they're going to be training. Do you want to just look good? Do you want to build endurance strength? Are you looking for explosive muscles because you're a sprinter? Are you focused primarily on the legs? Are you focused more on the upper body? Or what are you looking for? What is the purpose behind that strength training? Same for Jeet Kune Do. What is the purpose behind? Are you trying to triple backflip? No, Ian, no one's trying to triple backflip. Those are freaking lunatics. Yes. Are you trying to do something that is a little bit outside of the bounds of normal? I can't even do for a triple backflip. I don't know. I can look at probably the movement, and Ian has sent me a lot. He also does tricking. He's worked with Cirque du Soleil and done some, and Marvel. and some other ones too, and done some really cool movies. Could do stuff I can't do. That being said, he has asked me several times to look at the movement, and that's something I can do, is look at the movement. I've had people take my training. I've had two young people who did discus and shot put. I can't throw. I actually don't know if I can throw. Maybe I can. But I would go through there and watch their video, and I worked with them hands on and really helped them cultivate attributes or skills that they then, through their own work, applied to discus and shot put, and they were phenomenal. They crushed the competition. They went from highly competitive to just dominant in there. I got a whole lot of stuff in there. I think. No, man. I can do stuff with. Well, that's true. I was going to tease in and say the body can do all kinds of crazy stuff, but it really can't. You can only do X, Y, and Z, and that's kind of what you're doing. It's looking at developing new things. So if you're looking at a chessboard, the chess pieces only move certain ways, and you can only do certain things with them. It's what can you then create from that, and that's why we're an art, not a something else, because the personal expression is important. How you express it and doing it there. Hey gang, take 1 minute. I gotta go pee. Is what I'm gonna go do. So give me a second while I go to the bathroom, and I'll be right back. Write some comments in here or something, okay? Hey, I have something for you. I have a short of it somewhere. I think I used it for like camping, and it had to do with a little blue bulb thingy that you can get from your drugstore, and using salt water to flush out your sinuses. I've been using that for the last couple of days, and I think it's probably saved my head from exploding. Again, I had a bit of a head cold, lots of sinus pressure, and you're just like, oh man. And you get some salt, you put it in a cup with some warm water, swirl it around, take a little bowl, and then, don't like try to jet blast your face off or something. But I was able to rinse out and find out just like globs of gunk stuff out. So there's other stuff besides how to punch people in the face, and I will say that's a really good thing to do in there. It's about the rivalries between there. I don't know that the Japanese, when I went into, when I lived in Japan, I lived in Tokyo for a year, and the Japanese are really still all in with feudal Japan. Uh, and this was 20 years ago, 22, 3, shut up. Uh, there's anyway, 20 plus years ago, they were like probably 25% of the shows were like historical things on, something about samurais or something. They really like that. So that's really gone, and that's crossed over. You see all the anime, it's still coming into it. I mean, sumo wrestling was really big on TV. I didn't understand most of what was being shown. And then they like crazy game shows. Or at least they did back in the day. So, a Japanese bakery dog. I don't even know. I will look that up. I guess I can imagine that a Japanese bakery doc about the actual bakeries or not. Or I'm gonna have to look that up. Corey needs to tell me. She needs to send me a playlist. Um, yeah, going through these people and what they're doing, you do see a lot of the stuff. The anime comes through there. Rivalries. We can only conjecture about what they were thinking. We have a few writings from this person, from that person. It's it's a bit convoluted, and it's really been twisted with modern society and our media news spin is coming out. I mean, look at Jeet Kune Do. Jeet Kune Do started as one thing and is twisted up into some crazy shit by people, talking about like, well, Bruce was this and Bruce was that and blah, blah. It's like, dude, the guy was a pretty damn gifted athlete. Was he perfect? Heck no, he wasn't. Was he flawed? Absolutely. But did he spark something, and did he take something that he was given and try to make it better? I do think so. And I think that's something to be. I was talking about this in class the other day, that Bruce was not only, I mean, Bruce Lee wanted to take, from what I've gotten, okay, look, I'm not going to try to denounce somebody on something, but from what I've gotten, Bruce was taking the Eastern philosophy and the Western science and trying to merge them. He really liked both of them. A lot of the quotes that Bruce makes aren't actually his. He's quoting, like, Eastern philosophy, saying, like, if I were to quote you like, oh, a stitch in time saves nine, I'm not telling you something I came up with. I'm just sharing something that was, I grew up with, and I'm sharing that to somewhere else. Maybe somebody would think that was whatever. Coming through there. So, I kind of had like the thing of like being sick, and then I wanted to share a few other things. I had the other thing about talking about like fencing and boxing and just sort of like my thoughts on there. But what else you got, gang? What's something you want to hear about? Interesting. Yeah, Bruce was doing that, and there's all kinds of stuff they were talking about with. So it says it's interesting that Bruce Lee was actually in a crossover. Well, I don't know if he was in the crossover, but his character Kato was the Green Hornet was over in the DCU. Oh, did they do something with like Bruce Lee in more recent things? I didn't see it. If they did it, I haven't seen it. I thought you were talking about the actual when Bruce was doing that, and they did the old Batman and Robin thing way back when. I used to watch that as a kid. I don't actually remember seeing the Kato Green Hornet crossover though, but I don't know. It is what it is. Yeah. So I'm just sort of rambling on now. I don't know what else we want to talk about. People who suck. I've been asking. Another thing was people were asking me about like who I like. Do I like this person? Do I like that person? I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say on that one. One, I'll be perfectly honest about who I like and I don't like. But the other part, and this is the part I really want to share with everybody. I'm getting more mature and I have a different mindset. The younger Joel, who was a bit more of an asshole and closed-minded on stuff, had a different viewpoint. For me, I look at Jeet Kune Do specifically and martial artists in general. What do they have to offer? What are they sharing? What are they doing? Now, if I'm looking at Jeet Kune Do and you ask, well, hey, what about this person? Person A. Well, firstly, do they have good movements? Are they legitimate? Are they sharing information that is good and is going to be benefit for students out there? If the answer is yes, then yeah, I can't really go against them for that. There's actually a lot of people out there. This is going to be 3 parts. I'm totally making shit up. I can't count. And I'll probably add in a letter or something later too. So one, if somebody was asked, I was asked about Paul Vunak. Paul Vunak is older than I am. He's been in it for longer than I am. He's under Dan Inosanto. Is one of the top guys early on under Dan, back when Dan had a lot of people. He's a little bit more Filipino martial arts than he is Jeet Kune Do, in my opinion. He does that a lot. There's nothing wrong with it. Firstly, he's put out a program, and that program has been shared to a lot of people, and they have benefited. So for beginner level students coming in, even level 2 kind of students coming in, there's really solid movements in there. Do I have a difference of opinion from Paul Vunak on a lot of things specific to Jeet Kune Do? Absolutely, I do. Firstly, I don't think you should close to a headbutt. It seems like a really dumb idea. Secondly, I don't think he understands the energy nearly to the state I do. But who cares? He also had this really cool video that I still geeky kind of really like, which is he takes a knife to a freaking side of beef. And I was like, that's pretty damn cool. So if you haven't seen that, go look that up. But yeah, he was, I'll read this. What is this? Wow, that's a lot to read, man. I didn't even put my glasses on. Where are my glasses? Oh, they're way over here. It's interesting. Yeah, I think Bruce Lee, Green Hornet went over, Bruce Lee was playing Kato from the show The Green Hornet, and they had a crossover with Batman and Robin in the old 60s and 70s show. And there's stories about that where the actor who was playing Robin, originally it was written that Kato was supposed to lose to Robin, and Bruce Lee apparently lost his shit and threw a freaking temper tantrum. And even the guy, the actor who played the Green Hornet, said you could hear Bruce just like when he found out. He was apparently walking down a hall and was like, bam, bam, bam. I mean, guy, he was in his 20s. He was young and cocksure. You remember being in your 20s? I was in my 20s once. I started training in my 20s, so I guess in my late 20s I was a bit more. In my 30s, my early 30s, I was a bit more like, let's freaking throw down. Going with other people, I think looking at one, so taking someone like Paul, I look at Paul and I go, okay, what has he given to the world of martial arts? He's actually given quite a lot. He's helped a lot of people better themselves, I hope in a positive way, through martial arts. And you can't really discount that. And I wouldn't have given that credit 10, 15 years ago, but I'm going to give that credit now. Secondly, with Jeet Kune Do, I am very hypercritical, but again, he's a second generation like I am, so I'm holding him to a totally different standard than I would for a lot of other people. Most quote-unquote JKD instructors out there, I look at them like students and then judge them accordingly to that. I don't put them to my level, mostly because they're not there. And then the third thing is it goes back to that artistic expression. Just because we both do the same training, not even quite, because we wouldn't have done the exact same training. Although I have trained with Inosanto guys, and this was over 20 years ago, and they were good. It's different, and I have lots of other training as well. So it's like already being talented. It's like already having played a bunch of different sports, and then one coach just comes in and says, hey, we're going to do some more strength training. Even though I've been in the gym for, 10, 15 years, someone says, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to do different strength training. So there we go. Is Wing Chun branched from JK? No. Jeet Kune Do, it would be literally branched, in my opinion. Jeet Kune Do would be branched from Wing Chun. So you would do that because Wing Chun came first, and that's what Bruce started in, and then modified the Wing Chun, and it would be modified. But it's interesting because people always want to go back to Wing Chun, and I'm like, he changed the name for a reason. He didn't call it Wing Chun Do, although what's his name did. and a lot of those guys do from more of the Seattle area, because that's, in my opinion, the Seattle group is modified Wing Chun, and even the Oakland group is as well. But I would say no. Wing Chun would be the parent, and then Jeet Kune Do would have been an offshoot of that. For the people who watch this stream, send us videos. Yeah. So, so if you're watching this stream, send us some videos to review. If you've got somebody like, hey, what do you think about this person? People were asking me about people today and some of the comments on other videos, and they were saying, what do you think about this person? I was like, I actually don't know who that person is. That doesn't mean a whole lot. I do know who a lot of them are, because I trained in LA and I was there when all the people were there, and I trained with a guy named Ed Monahan. That's my Kung Fu. I don't have my Kung Fu shirt on, but I'm also a 5th degree black belt in an art called Doji Kung Fu, and that's from Ed Monahan, and that's how I met the Inosanto people and a ton of other people, including Jerry Poteet, and Ed is a full instructor under Jerry Poteet as well. I know a lot of the old school people, and there's a lot of them that I disagree with, but that's, young cocksure Joel being me. Let's see, what else we got on there? How come a lot of martial arts have weaponized versions of them who use weapons? I forgot. Okay, so that is a good question. Why doesn't... So, karate, empty hand, has weapons. So when you look at the weapons of Okinawa, because Okinawa was the islands south, and they were not actually part of Japan, they were there. There's people who are going to give you this history way better than me. But karate, empty hand, and they didn't have swords. They didn't have a katana. They didn't have spears. They weren't allowed to do that because they were peasant farmers. So when they're using the tonfas, they're using things like that. They're using a bow staff. Why? Because they were peasants in uprising, and they learned to use farming equipment as weapons to fight against people. And there's reasons in there. And a lot of people would have had that. Jeet Kune Do coming into... JKD Concepts, they don't actually have the weapon version. That's Dan using Kali, so the Filipino martial arts. It's literally not part of it. It's different. And Jerry Poteet did the same thing. He trained with a lot of those guys, with Luque. I think that was the dad. Might not have been. But James DeMille. Yeah, James DeMille used the Wing Chun Do. And I've trained with the Concepts people, like the higher level people, not like low level. And I've looked at their movements. I have done Kali with Ron Beliki and Diana Santo. So it was a workshop at Ed's school, and Ed's friends with Ron, and a lot of those people out there. Why don't we have weapons? I actually think that we do, but it's a little bit different. It kind of goes for me with the Doji Kung Fu. This is a pen, but it's a weapon. So if you've got it in there, it really goes through. When I went to fencing, I do an hour session with my fencing coach, and we would do movement for half an hour, and then we would do philosophy and just really coming through. And a lot of things you go with here, you can do with a weapon, you can do with a foil, you can do with your hand. They really mirror each other. So the fencing in Jeet Kune Do is a bit more of the strategies and philosophies, not the actual movements. I think people trying to do that are a little bit off in their understanding. Also, Bruce created it in the late 60s and 70s, so it wasn't created for running around with a machete or against something else. And I think he was also looking at, it was a street fight. What are you doing against another person, one-on-one? Because a lot of these other martial arts really came about before the mainstream use of firearms. And I mean, shit. Like, your sword's all great and shit, and I know there's some videos out there of katanas cutting bullets and katanas being held up and bullets fired at them. Um, if you're shooting a musket, maybe you could cut it because the bullets or the shot, the speed is slow enough for the eye to be able to track it. But modern firearms are shooting projectiles at 1,000 feet per second. That's a really long way. I can't track that. You can't track a bullet with it. So coming in there, if you're using, hey, look, pow. If you haven't shot, like at a certain point, martial arts doesn't mean shit. I actually one of my teachers, Hanshi Vince Anthony, who's passed away, like 8-9 years ago. I think it was 10 years ago, 9 years ago, I think. He did a lot of stuff where he worked with the Defense Department, and he worked with a lot of various groups. And guy was really skilled, and he said, you know what? Most time, if you've got a firearm, everything's at the end of a barrel. You're not doing anything, all like punching and kicking and locking. No, it's all done at the end of a barrel. You're gonna shoot somebody. And if you look at like Navy SEALs, when they train and they do stuff, there was a documentary that was showing a lot of the stuff they use, and everything's the end of a barrel. So they come in. They were doing capturing prisoners. So it's like two guys are pointing guns at somebody. They're telling them get on the ground. Third person comes in and they have a way to come onto it. But it's more like prison guards getting a prisoner, and when they don't have compliance, everybody backs up and then you just fill them full of holes. So if you're faced against firearms, like I've got some, I've got some. No, I got a hunting knife. I've got one of those. Can you do knife attacks? Yeah, but I think you can do the same thing if someone's reaching for that knife and you're boom and you're coming out and then you're following up with straight blast. Great, but I mean, most people still think, shit. Most people in the JKD world will punch with a horizontal fist and think that's the way they're supposed to do it, instead of the vertical fist, which gives you a better alignment, which then opens into the open hand, the Sean Sal Fox style. But just getting all in here, I don't even see that in 90% of the JKD stuff out there. Hey, there's somebody on here is like Bruce Lee, man, myth, legend. What? You're gonna know way more about this than I am. I literally have. Hold on, I'm gonna show you a book. I'm gonna show you a book. I've looked at it and I thought maybe I would read it. I haven't read it. Wait. Oh no, that's not the title of it. It's literally in a Ziploc bag because one of my students gave this to me a long time ago. I should probably read it. Ba-da-ba. Bruce Lee, The Man Only I Knew, by Linda Lee. I did read another book. I think someone has that book from mine. There's a couple of books in there. I know a lot of people get into people always like to give me books. I've got like a Bruce Lee book. I've got like the history of Jeet Kune Do, and for me, sometimes they're cool. Like this might be cool just for stuff in there, but I'm interested in Jeet Kune Do, and from that, the people writing books are not going to know more than Jerry Poteet. So, if you're going to collect somebody's notes, I have a crap load of notes. It doesn't seem as good to me to take someone else's writings or collections to be a source of knowledge and learning, because they're not going to have the perspective. The Tao is a little bit different because people were consulted on that one. I think Jerry was consulted. I'm sure Dan was consulted, and a few other people were consulted about that one. about putting the notes together. And again, it's a more of a reference guide for stuff in there. Oh, well, that would go into that one. Do I have that book? Bruce Lee's Fighting Methods? I might have that. It might be another one of those books that I haven't read. It's just sitting on a shelf over here. Someone gave me Bruce Lee. Which one is this? I don't know what this is. A Life by Matthew. That's not it. I don't know. I might have that one. That might be in the bookshelf downstairs too. Sometimes. Oh no, I don't know. I have some other books in there that are randomness. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what those. I don't know what those are. I guess I'll have to look that up. Is there pictures in that book? Is there pictures of stuff? I gotta say, I don't like. So speaking of books, there is a book over there that I still have, and so this is where I gotta get into stuff. I'm gonna pull this one out. Where is this book? I kept it because. Well, I'll pull out two books. Dropping shit off the shelf in front of. It's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna pull out two books here. God, oh look, there's a receipt in here. There's a receipt in here. That'll tell me maybe. I have to pull out glasses to see when I bought this thing. I'm gonna have to pull out glasses. I cannot read small stuff anymore. When did I get that? Ooh, Borders, Books and Music. I don't even think that exists. Borders is closed, I think. July 20th, 2006. Why did I go and get that? Well, and this is the book I got. It's Jeet Kune Do, Hardcore Training and Strategies Guide by Larry Hartzell. And then he's got, there's somebody else in here, who I actually got into a discussion with. I think it was more of a disagreement. With the guy who's in here with Larry. And then I think Dan's in here with him at some point. And he doesn't do anything bad. And I think that's something to really be said there. He doesn't do anything bad in this book. But, and I'm going to back this up with something else. So, advanced trapping skills. Now, if you can't see, I made notes. This is in 2006, but I'm making notes in here. And I don't even know what the notes I'm making on the picture books. Pictures are like almost the worst. Disengaged, chambered, back fist, lop too low. They could do Jiao Sao against that one. So I was making notes, and this was really, really early on. This is advanced trapping skills, and I put "holy shit" as a statement in there. I just don't think that it's super good. Now I'm gonna hold on. There's a second book I pulled up, and I think that maybe goes into some stuff. When I trained with Jerry Petit, I trained with him 2006 until 2010 when I left. Right before I left LA, we stopped. And second book, Jerry Petit's Jeet Kune Do Secrets, Volume 2, Energy Training. I actually don't know what's in this. That's Dimitri on the front. He's actually pretty good. You don't hear about D. I don't even know. He used to run around. He was really good. Ed's in here. Ed's in this one. I think Tov's probably in here somewhere. This is D again. Yep, Tov's in here. And this is the stuff. This is like the this stuff. Everybody's like, oh, super advanced. This was like week 1. I was moving past this stuff after that. So, 2006, I had reached the advanced stuff already. and then we kept going. And what you see is advanced. I don't see anybody showing higher level than that, but I don't consider it advanced. And those of you who train with me, you can probably look at that, and Ian for sure has seen all this stuff. But really, like I don't see most people doing a whole lot of stuff in there. Hold on, you don't. Legend Bruce Lee book have no moves versus weapons. Bruce did like nunchakus for wrist work and timing, and our knee sticks, the bow, all these. So I was told that when he did the sticks in Enter the Dragon, they were not. It wasn't the Filipino stuff. It was um, it was Kali stuff, or not Kali stuff. Sorry, it wasn't the Filipino. It was still Wing Chun stuff that he was doing from there, and he liked a lot of stuff. He liked cool different stuff. I mean, he was a young guy who was around martial arts. What people tend to forget is he also trained with a lot of other peoples. He was really good friends with Ed Parker for Kempo. He was friends with Jun Rhee for Taekwondo. Um, he ran around with uh, you know Joe Louis, um, why Chuck Norris, and then Bill Wallace. Bill Wallace, these guys were all karate Tenseido, and coming through there, I don't know that he didn't use more weapons, but I always find it funny that people want to go like, "Hey, here's Enter the Dragon kind of stuff," and I'm like, well, "Why don't you use a freaking dart?" He thought that was cool too. In the movies, the thing where he's and he blows the dart and it hits the apple or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of why doesn't he use a rattlesnake? Which is another point. Like as far as I can tell, that was a real freaking or not rattlesnake, it was a real cobra, and I don't even know that would be allowed to happen now because of like animal safety stuff, but also actor safety stuff. Like Bruce smacks a freaking cobra that he's holding and then stuffs it into a bag. I mean, I'm sure they milked that thing before, but yeah. Whoa. I agree. I think Bruce was very open minded to other things. And I don't think that he was trying to push away bad stuff. I think he was more about trying to say, hey, some of you are losing your way and you're getting really fixated on doing this form or being flowery and you have to be into sparring. Why sparring? Not hardcore sparring, like, oh, that's stupid. But having that aliveness, the people were losing their aliveness, and I think it's also very difficult because Bruce is explaining Jeet Kune Do in English. That's his second language. Like, I've got a smattering of two other languages that I can speak. I can't think to really express. I'll give you a great example. I trained in Muay Thai with a bunch of people, but one of the big ones was Crew Pong. Pong at Gyoten, great gym. If you're in Southern California, you should go check him out. He is phenomenal and an absolute monster, but really sharing and really giving. And when I think Muay Thai, I have Pong's head in his voice in my head going, punch, block, kick, block, punch, Joe, punch. And I remember he had an interview in Muay Thai magazine, and I get used to this broken English because he's teaching us in class, and he's sharing a lot of insight and he's doing a lot of stuff. And I'm reading this interview and I was like, whoa, he's so smart and so insightful. And then I realized that they probably had talked to him in Thai and then translated it in English. Although I'm sure his English is far, far better now. He was already married then. He's very his wife is American and his kids are grown. I remember his son being in a little thing and just he was like 1, 2 years old, and would just sit there and watch us in class. But I think that's a really insightful thing to go, hey, I don't I don't know that Bruce was able to fully share, well, we're never fully able to share our thoughts through language, but he was doing it through his second language. I think that's going to be even more challenging. I, you know, I don't know. I don't know how good Bruce's English was, to be perfectly honest, uh, coming through there. Oh, do you think it was a hog nose steak? Maybe. That'd be really good. Actually, I don't know. Uh, do they have hoods on them? The hog nose snake? I should look that up. That seems like a cool thing. So Cherokee Survival said hog nose snake looks like king cobra. Maybe. I actually don't know. That would be a really cool thing. It's, I always ask questions that no one else really wants to know. We should do a video on that. What did Bruce really do? I wonder who knows that one. Martial arts is good for self-defense, but there was a teaching in Christianity that I thought was good to keep in mind, where Jesus Christ said, "He who lives by the sword will die by the sword." Um, yeah, Ed might know more about that. He's been doing more with Christianity and martial arts. Yeah, I say Christianity often misquoted. I grew up in the Bible Belt, and oh, the hognose does copy the cobra. Wow. Yeah. No, I don't. And I think you're right that for alchemy neuro, for those of you, I don't think martial arts is a primary for most people, where we have to train. I mean, most people didn't. That was a warrior class that did it for most people, or they were learning it because they were trying to uprise, and a lot of them were going fast track. So you didn't have 10 years. Someone like me almost didn't exist in most places because they didn't have they didn't get to be 50. Shit, they just die of old age by 50. And if you were a warrior, you were probably massively injured, broken bones, cuts, contusions, what have you, from war, from battle. And that's assuming you didn't die or get, like maimed or injured, and that's where some of the stuff goes into. Self-defense is a little bit different. Can it work? Yeah, you go into things like the Kajukenbo guys in Hawaii in the 60s. That's why they came up with Kajukenbo, because it's very violent in Hawaii. There's still a lot of violence in Hawaii even now, apparently. Uh, like, I don't live in a neighborhood, I don't live in a community where you're going to have to use self-defense. But martial arts doesn't have to be about just fighting. And I'm going to put two things on that. First one is, as a martial artist, you are growing. You are challenging yourself mentally, physically, spiritually to overcome an obstacle. You get to make mistakes, hopefully in a safe place, and then work with people that you like and grow as an individual and learn to express yourself more fully in the world. Yes, is it through things? But you know what? So is a game of tag. Like, literally a game of tag, or kids wrestling. We're animals, and I think as a third part 7B, whatever that is. As animals, we tend to repress ourselves. We tend to repress our primal instinct. Primary freedom is what Bruce called it. So the primary, maybe his English was way better than ours. Your primary freedom is that of an animal, being able to unleash yourself as an apex creature. We're top of the food chain for a lot of reasons. It's not just the old thunker up here, and not just the opposable thumb. We are really capable when push come to shove, and athletes the world over show us that. So one, we should be doing that. And you see animals in nature, they're fighting, so those are hunting skills, right? Like cats are, well, those are kill things, and the parents will teach the cubs those things to help them become better predators, or whatever it is, or to get mates or what have you. So it's sort of the animal self-defense. We do that as well. We like to wrestle. Why do you think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is so freaking prevalent today? It's justifiable excuse to basically hug somebody. We like that. Come here. I mean, you're getting like super sweaty with somebody else, and yeah, it's fun. Honestly, I like grappling, whether it's on the ground, stand up. I don't like being thrown so much anymore. I'm a bit old for that. We got really good mats. You can throw me, but for kind of something else. Yeah. So your total well-being, whether it's going to be your physical body being better, your mental capacity, being able to avoid some of the mental deterioration, and then spiritually of really going on, getting rid of stress and helping you be better and finding a community to be into. That's going to be your self-defense. You're fighting against societal anxiety and repression maybe, and allowing yourself to find who you should be and who you want to be. I was going to go somewhere with that, so maybe I don't know. I should write these things down as I get to them. I tend to be all over the place. Where are we at with stuff? Martial arts is top right. No. Okay, so I'm going to go into. So a lot of times when you go into, there's two things. Hold on, two things. So one, I'm going to write it down. Who was I? I'm just talking about this with somebody. So, all right, first one is you're kind of going back into talking about Christianity. So Jesus' time, 2,000 years plus minus back ago. You're going back 2,000 years. Crap, you go back 200 years is a different world. You go back, I'm talking about going back 20 years is a different world. That's in my lifespan. So murder versus killing. And I think that's a really big difference. So fighting off someone and hurting someone or killing them for self-defense is not the same as going out and viciously murdering somebody. And so the live by the sword, die by the sword, if you're going out and you're causing pain and you're putting yourself in a world to create negativity, you're going to create negativity and that's going to come back at you. So if you create positivity, then you're going to create positivity. I don't know how well that goes up. Again, translations, because the Bible's translated a lot. But I want to go into something else. And it kind of ties in with that, whether you're going into Alexander the Great, or you're going into Musashi, you're going into Sun Tzu, you're going into Jesus or Moses or whoever. Violence in history. So the casual violence perpetrated by the common person in our history was horrendous. What was acceptable back then, 1,000 years ago, just would be thought of as atrocious today. They were horrible, and you can go and find all kinds of examples in every one of them. Yes, they were great people, but there's also just like people just died. They were killed off. They were stoned to death. I mean, you go in the Bible, people were stoned to death all the time. Why? Because public opinion said, you suck, we don't like you, you're different than us, you don't look like us. How many hatreds are still perpetuated today because people look different or act different or something different, and they just keep building on it. It's the amount of violence done to another person is massive. And I'm going to say probably a lot of it is the times were much more animalistic then. and we didn't have cameras and shit. Like, if you weren't gonna get caught, so if you were really freaking mean to me, or you were an asshole, or you had something I wanted, and we were in old North Canada, not in North Canada, I'm actually in South Canada, but you were in, wherever, North America before cameras and stuff, and you're off in kind of the wilds, so to speak, and you had some shit I wanted or I needed because I needed to survive and it was going to be cold or, something, whatever, I just take a freaking rock and hit you in the head and then kill you. Take all your shit. Kick the body in a ditch somewhere. Something's going to eat you. No one finds out. No one would know. There's no cameras. There's no tracking shit. People probably didn't even know that person was there. And I don't know I was there, so there's nothing to come into there. So you just get away with it. They had a different, I think they would have had a different way, or a different morality at the time. I mean, go back, don't even go back all that far, go back 100 years ago. We were, hey gang, we're World War One right now. World War Two, people think was a really long time ago, but it wasn't all that long ago. That was my grandparents' era. Most of those people are passed on at this point, but a few are still around. And their stories are still there and fresh. Going into Korea, Vietnam, and lots of other places. There was a lot of things that were done horribly to other people, but also sometimes it depends on the culture. There's the the March of Bataan, where U.S. soldiers were captured by the Japanese and made to do this march. It was death march. It was, this is so terrible. It was horrible. Well, yeah, but the Japanese was like, you should be able to walk this. But they'd gotten kind of soft. They weren't able to walk that far. They weren't capable of doing it. There's a whole crap load of things up there. Yeah, I think those are some things to look at. What you could do and what you would do would be in there. Martial arts has really come up because, hey, you're bigger than me, so I'm going to grab a stick and hit you because that's going to equal the odds. Well, then you go, wait a minute, I'm going to learn how to dodge that stick, and then I can, punch you. And then I'm going to learn how to punch you better because it'll drop you faster. I mean, people in a bar can figure that out. There's a lot of people in just bar fights who just sucker punch people. They're non-telegraphic, they're super efficient, and all that stuff. I'm going to go into that one. Sorry, tangent time. I know, we kind of went off. I'll come back to the comments in a second. People hitting. I think it's a really big one. I hit really, really hard. I mean, I can hit hard. I'm 200 pounds, 50 years old. I can hit hard. I know other people who can hit really, really hard. Most of the people out there talking about doing hard sparring and doing all this stuff, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm like, no, you're not. You don't hit that damn hard. You don't hit hard. Some people just hit hard naturally, and they're kind of a fluke. And then others can learn how to do that. Now, hard being relative, that's part of what we're doing. The Jeet Kune Do is using science, mass times acceleration, to increase. So if you're accelerating, you're creating force. I'm not just throwing a punch and hitting it. There's some people out there who are in the JKD world who just do not understand that, because they'd move differently if they did. But hitting hard, I went to school with a guy named Martin. Martin was stupid strong. Teenage kid, could bench and squat guy was like 150, 160 pounds in high school, and it was Martin and Jeff. And they were both they could squat a stupid amount and bench press a stupid amount. I think they could bench and squat more than I can now, or I ever have been able to be perfectly honest. But they were doing this as teenagers, just bit of freaks. Martin could hit so damn hard. We'd play stupid games. A lot of people, you're like, that hurt, because we were idiots in small town Oklahoma. But Martin would hit, and you're like, oh God, it just hurt because he just had that capacity, just naturally. And I've heard other people talk about acquaintances or friends who were just naturally good at hitting. It's like someone just being naturally good at throwing a baseball. I'm not, by the way. But you get some kids who are like, here's a baseball, throw it, and they're like, and they can just whip that sucker for speed and distance. Some people just naturally throw a punch really, really well. So, are you laughing at my complete tangents over there? I would laugh too. I gotta say, I know I've known in my career of training and working with other people, uh, martial artists of very high caliber, like really can go. And I also know some of them in the same category, people who I've been there, done that in some situations I've never been in, whether it was military, law enforcement, most of them I think military, and some other sort of governmental programs. Uh, they were all kind of goofy jokesters. Like everybody was kind of basically a little kid. Always kind of like bah, ha, 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 and laughing and kind of, now we would be serious in training, but always kind of like a jokester, and just kind of always had that in there. I guess that's kind of the two things. Yeah, so one, yeah, always kind of goofy jokesters. The second thing is, I guess, very respectful. Um, for me, once you realize someone's potential, I always say this in class, like, hey, I have a lot of safety measures for students when we're drilling. And I always tell them it's not because I think you're stupid or you suck and you're an idiot and you're just going to hurt yourself because you're a dimwit. I'm going, no, it's the complete opposite. I think you're going to figure this out at some point, and when you do, you're going to be really shocked and surprised about the amount of power that you're able to generate, and it's going to get away from you. It's like getting in a sports car that has way more power than you're used to and saying, I'm going to punch the pet. Like, no, let's take some precautionary measures. So recognizing the potential in yourself. If I know I can do this, I recognize that you can also do this. If I can do that, then you can too, because again, we only got 2 arms, 2 legs, all that potential in there. And yeah, and your partner's gonna be the first one to know. So I'll come back to that with a thing about Sam and Robert, which is a really funny story that I did in Oklahoma, I think during a class. Uh, but really respectful, because if I know I can do this much, and if shit goes sideways, it's going to go to this level, because I don't know what you're capable of. But and that's a conversation that I had with Jerry Petit as well. Jeet Kune Do is meant to go to the death. When you go, you're not supposed to be playing grab ass. You're not going to touchy feely. It's go fast, go hard, kill them. You don't stop until they are completely decimated, because you don't know what that level is going to be. And in a unknown scenario against an unknown opponent, you must assume that they are skilled and capable with bad intentions, and to overcome that, you got to kill them. And if they happen to be completely like, and then you stop because they're incapacitated 100%, and they don't die, well, that's a bonus. But you're trying to hit them. As I do throats, man. If I do a fox out of the throat, it's meant to kill. So if I'm doing that and you're doing that, hey, I don't really want to do that, because I want to come home to my kids. They're great. I like them. They're pretty fantastic to hang around and be around. I want to spend that time with them. I don't want to go to jail or have to deal with the situation of I killed you because we got in an argument about something. That's something that argument about something trivial with a person who's not important to me isn't worth me sacrificing everything I love and hold dear. I, that's part of destroying the ego. Is that's my parking spot, or I'm tougher than you. I don't give a shit, man. Because like to prove that I'm tougher than you, or to take that parking spot instead of just going and find another one, I'm gonna sacrifice my family and my ability to be with my family. No, I don't think so. But if my feelings are hurt so much and my ego is so fragile that I'm gonna put my ego above my love for my children, there's where you run into problems. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of that personally. So I will say I do yell at people. And I do say bad things about people, if they take my parking spot or cut me off on the road. But really, that's me chewing out me, because it's not, as I've often said to people, like, can you imagine if I, like my kids, I'm like, yeah, it's great. You can be mad. It's totally okay to be mad, but like, don't like go beat the shit out of somebody. I tell students, like, my kids in class, like, can you imagine if Sifu just like got mad at somebody and used his kung fu against everybody? Like, I'd be in jail. There's a lot of people who I would have liked to have punched, and I didn't, because I wouldn't be here. I'd be in jail. We wouldn't be having this conversation. Let's talk about Sam and Robert. So we were working on hook kicks, and we had big kick shields and coming down, and I think we were working on low line hook kicks, pendulum hook kick, and just coming through, and just we had a couple pairs in there. I don't know, it was 10, 12 people in class, and I was talking to someone over here, and all of a sudden, this big old boom happens. I was like, holy shit, who did that? Sam was this young, tall, gangly, kind of awkward kid. And he goes, Sifu, I think it was me. Robert's holding the kick shield, and Robert's built like a bull. And he had it down low. And he goes, oh, it was definitely you. Which goes into what Ian was saying. Yeah, your training partner should be the first one to know that you figured it out. So if you come in and you just, it clicks, boom. And I'll say, I had another time I was down doing a workshop or something in Oklahoma. And I had somebody, and one of my favorite demonstration stories for when you're doing it properly and why you want to have a good relationship with your training partner, where there's a lot of trust and you're developing and cultivating those skills together, because your training partner is going to know a lot about you. So when you're holding focus mitts, I'm not only learning how to read your punches, I'm also feeling the contact, and I'm judging and assessing it every single time. I'm always getting plus training when I'm holding. And so you're not just working as the puncher, you're also working as the holder with focus mitt drills. And I think there's so much to be done with those that can really cultivate skills. But I had somebody holding, and I was talking about punching, and I was talking to everybody else, and I was hitting the pads. I did this at UCLA with kick shields. I was helping out my buddy Charlie teach a Muay Thai class down there. I'll get to that story in a second. And what happened was I was punching this stuff, and I was demonstrating, and I was thinking in the back of my head, these punches all suck. Like, shit, I'm down here supposed to be Sifu Joel, like, oh shit, and they're paying money for me to come in and teach them something, and I'm over here hitting these pads like a big wimp, and because there's just nothing on them. Like, I wasn't feeling anything on the punches at all, and I'm not feeling a thing. And I finished talking, and I said, okay, go. The person holding suddenly is like, oh my god! What? Those punches were so hard! Wait a second. And I started kind of thinking about the science and the math. There was no feedback. So when I was hitting, all that kinetic energy was making a very economical transition into the target, in this case, the focus mitt. I didn't feel a lot of resistance. I didn't feel the rebound or the recoil of hitting. Like when you hit a punching bag, a big heavy bag, you're going to get more of that feel. With a focus mitt, you may not. And part of that is, I'm going to another thing. We talked about this other thing in class. It was pretty cool. Um, is when you hit it and you're doing the force times mass times acceleration to create force. When you're creating force, that it's accelerating. So when you hit the target, it accelerates through the target. That's going to be something different. And I've done that with hits, and I don't always do it very great, but I just remember doing that. And that's something you can find out with your partner. When you do that successfully yourself, oh God, I should probably drink some. I didn't know I was hitting hard. You're probably not going to know you're hitting hard. The guy holding knew I was hitting hard, and Robert knew Sam was kicking hard. You have to put those safety protocols in there so that you're being protected. So when I hold, I try to hold in a way that's going to protect me for my student or whoever my training partner is. For them, when they hit it, they're going to unload. And look, gang, I've got some students that train with me that are quite a bit bigger and stronger than me. And like, I'm teaching them the right way. So if I'm not prepared to hold for them in a way that's going to safeguard my body, I'm going to get a wrecked shoulder. I'm going to have something hurt on me. And I just don't want to do that. It's a really, really big deal to protect yourself. When I was in Hollywood training private students before I left LA, I would only do 2 privates with punching in a day because the guys hit too freaking hard. They just hit too hard. I was like, I couldn't book, and I had a couple of guys that were training with me a couple of times a week. And I was like, I got 2 of you on Tuesday. Somebody else's, whoever number 3 is, they're doing energy work because I can't. My body was wrecked, and I was in my late 20s, early 30s with this. So, yeah, a little bit different. This goes into another one of being able to hit and someone being prepared for it. When you're training, I'm holding a focus mitt and you're punching into it. I know what punch you're doing. I'm set up for it. I have an expectation that it's coming, and I've got a pretty good angle to read the punch. We're dialed into a drill, so we're cultivating together. But if I don't know that punch is coming and you hit me with it, and I don't have the resistance put up by being able to see the punch in advance or know it's coming, and even that little bit of resistance in there, it's going to do a whole lot of damage because there's nothing there. The trapping that we do in Jeet Kune Do and other martial arts too, but all the trapping, hey, I come in, I'm lops out, I'm clearing obstruction. You put an arm up, I hit that obstruction, and I'm going to clear it out of the way so I can get to the target. Well, if there's no obstruction, you're basically walk straight into the castle, taking over, and are doing a little tippity tap dance on their throat. And they don't have any, even tensing up. You can't. There's nothing to do that. And you'll see this if you played sports. So I could take a great example of me. I was playing football, senior year of high school, little town. We weren't anything. We were in the playoffs, and we played this other team. I think it was an illegal hit, but it doesn't really matter because I got hit out of nowhere. I was coming around, and the guy with the ball was coming towards me, and I had containment. And I really was supposed to get the guy in. I wasn't like the big tackler guy. There were a bunch of scrawny. I was a scrawny kid anyway. So I'm coming through, and just. I was so glad I wasn't on our specialty team, so that I could try to recover on the sidelines because we had to go back in, and I was on offense and I had to play. And I was so glad I wasn't on because they scored. But I was so glad I didn't have to be on the next play so I could cover. And I talked to somebody years later and they said, "Oh, that was you? I thought that was so-and-so." I said, "No, that was me." And, "Oh man, that was a terrible hit. You got decimated. I'm like, yeah, I know. It just leveled because I didn't see it coming. Guy just boom, full tackled me or blocked me or whatever, and oh, just wrecked me. It happens. So if you've had something like that happen to you, or here's a great one. I always use this one. You're walking along and you're not paying attention and you're just doing your normal walk and your leg goes bang right into a table. And it just drops you and it's completely unexpected. Or the other one, I did this when I went snowboarding with the kids and we stayed in these cabins and there was a little thing that was popping down. It was a little cabinet thing. And yeah, I hit my head on it. Hey, poof, ah! And you're just like, oh crap! You just no expectation that you're gonna get hit, and you hit your head or you hit your leg or whatever. You get bonkered in just an inanimate object. So you take that super quality hit that's being cultivated or been delivered by somebody, and if you can do it on an off timing and you can start switching, that's where timing distancing really helps out. Not just to score a hit, but to maximize the payload delivery so that we're very efficiently delivering all the kinetic energy to the right target at the right time so as their resistance to that hit is diminished. So you catch them off guard, right? If you can do that, it's really pretty fantastic. I mean, the things that can happen in the situation just massively change, and that's what footwork is for, and that's what the moving around. And you'll see it with pro fighters if you go into boxing or kickboxing or MMA even, and they're throwing hands or feet or whatever, and strikes are being delivered. You'll see somebody all of a sudden just down. That's because the timing happens right. Now, I don't really see that in the lower levels, but in the elite fighters, I would say contestants. I don't like to use fighter for sport because it's a little bit different thing. Military is fighting, street is fighting, but that's sparring. It is ultimately it's sparring. It has rules, your weight classes, yada yada. You can still get your ass handed to you, but it's still sparring. So resistance is important. If you have resistance, then you're diminishing that kinetic energy. You're diminishing the hit and how much damage it does. If they have no resistance, it's sort of like the video games. It's Mortal Kombat, and the guys finish him. Except I could never do the buttons right for the combos, and I always do like that kind of stuff. But if you get that in the video game, you're coming in there and the character gets sort of like woozy or whatever, and they're completely exposed. They have no resistance. That's when you can do like the super giant hit. Here's another thing. It was a shitty fad that was going around for people some years back. The Jawbreaker thing. And that was where younger people usually were coming up and they'd throw a haymaker from way over there, and I'm just standing at the bus stop, and boom, and I get hit and knocked out or a broken jaw because I had zero resistance. A haymaker is a freaking amazing punch. It is phenomenal, a haymaker. If you don't see it coming. If you can see it coming, then different. But that has to do with resistance. And that's where you go into non-telegraphic. Why do we want to tell people? Because I want their resistance to be less. If I move and you don't read my punch as well, your resistance, whether it's subconscious, sort of instinct, flinchy kind of resistance, the body's natural protection, or a cultivated response of a parry or evasion or a punch or whatever, that resistance is diminished. And even if we were talking about this before, if you're doing a parry, I was doing this in class last week. You got a parry, right? Well, if I go, hey, here comes the punch. Hey, pretty easy. But if I, boom, your parry is going to be a little bit more of an oh shit reaction, and it's not going to be as efficient on your side. So your resistance is going to be less. And I'm kind of just streaming into this stuff. So yeah, just see what else we're going to say. What time is it? I don't even know what time it is. What time are we at? We're at 8 o'clock. Let's see what we got to say. It's too bad they didn't learn that. No, Ip Man smoked opium. Here's the other thing, gang. All right, so I'm gonna end with this one. So just like in old times, everybody was coming in there. These people aren't perfect, but they were people, and usually they were trying to do stuff, and I don't remember why, but it's fairly well known that Ip Man used opium quite a bit, but a lot of people get strung out on stuff for various reasons. It could be their mental state, it could be a physical state, it could be for whatever other reason that it's in there. There's a lot of things that people used in our history that we would go, shit, what are you doing? I'm sure someone's going to, like, Coca-Cola's terrible for you, but sugar and all that stuff. I still love it. Brush your teeth, though. That's important. So, Ip Man used that. You know, there was a thing came up. There's a big brouhaha a little bit ago that Bruce Lee used cocaine. It's like, okay, so people are surprised by this one. Man, it was the 60s and 70s. He was a movie star in Hollywood with a lot of money. Did you see the guy move? He looked like he was on cocaine. Everybody was on cocaine back then. I had a friend who was a professor, Hane, and he was talking about being in New York in the 70s. And he was like, there was drugs everywhere. He goes, I didn't do any drugs. He goes, not because I didn't want to, because drugs were everywhere. It's like everybody was doing drugs. It looked like it was a great time. He's like, I just didn't have any money. I couldn't do any drugs because I didn't have any money for it. Like, it's what everybody was doing, you know. It's kind of the thing. I smoked for years. Why? Partly because of ADHD, partly because just stupid choices in life. And I think it was self-coping on, and I really came up in a culture of smokers. My dad smoked. I had the whole family. Everybody was smoking. I came up in a smoking culture, and so it wasn't perceived the same way as it would now. I would not want either of my children to smoke cigarettes, but I regret it, but not for the reasons of like, oh, I think it was a dumb choice. It was a bad choice, but yeah. Yeah. So Harry, yeah. So there is a lot. If you go into Asia, I mean, they did a lot of stuff. When you hear things about like snuff or the aristocrats in Europe doing things, they had the little snuff cans. They were drugs. It was like cocaine and opium and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff, and I like research the stuff on your own. I don't remember the specifics. It's not that channel. If you want to know how to punch somebody, I'm pretty good at it. But the other stuff is generalized information. Don't quote me on things. You know what? And if Linda said, "Hey, look, that's total bullshit. Bruce Lee, he was my husband. He never did cocaine." You got to go. Well, okay, there, never. I don't know that she's actually made a public statement on it. So I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Guy's been dead for 50 years. So whatever he did, we only have what we have. I am gonna end with this one instead of like talking about drugs and stuff. I talked about this before of what I was doing in here, and I think I'll leave you with this. And part of why the school is called Evolution a big reason why the school is called Evolution. I did a lot of thought into this one. I was talking to Jerry about this one a lot. What I was doing with him the last couple of years, especially the last year, so 2009 going into 2010, what I did with Jerry, not what I see out in the world. And I think a big reason for that is he was still growing as a martial artist. I trained privately with the guy for 4 years. I don't think anybody else was doing that. And definitely, I'm going to say nobody else at my level was consistently coming in like I did and training with him during that era. And yes, he was at the twilight of his years, but he was getting better. He was exploring and growing and evolving. And I was too. And I just was along for the ride. And it was super fantastic. I mean, that's what I'm still doing. My martial arts has not stopped. Ian's been with me for you're starting to get old now too, buddy. Over a decade now, and he can tell you. He's said it many times to me. Like, I don't do stuff the same way I did before. How I taught 15 years ago is not how I teach now. Shit, I'm getting into like it's getting into like almost 20 years. Well, I started training with Jerry over 20 years ago. That's like freaking crazy. And whoever you are and whatever you're doing, I think if you continue to grow as a martial artist and you take in whatever the experience is as a positive, that's a really big one for me. If you take it in as a positive, so I'm training, I'm doing this drill, whatever it is, I'm going to grow from it. It's going to give me information, and from that information, I will filter it and I will make use of it, and I'll decide what I want to do with it. Harry is a gifted guitarist and musician as well. I've had people who are way talented in lots of other stuff. I always talk about their things, and I only know about that much of what they do, and they're always way better than I am. Harry's got a new song out. You should check it out. And Harry, pop a little link in the description or in the chat if you can. But playing, you might play this or that, and as a guitarist, Harry likes to play this way because he likes to jam that way. Ed Monahan is a very accomplished guitarist. He likes to play music, but all the musicians that I know, and I'm very fortunate to know quite a few of them, that are very, very good, play different instruments and play different ways. But that's a personal choice, and that's the artist in you. So everything that we do from our training is gaining experience and knowledge and information so that we can then ultimately turn around and express ourselves how we feel today. So how I feel today is going to be one thing, and how I feel tomorrow is going to be something else, but how I was 20 years ago is not the same. It's also Pokemon. Pokemon, I think, was really successful because it's really rooted in some stuff that we can readily identify with. The evolution of a Pokemon starts here and then evolves, but it's essentially the same thing, which is just like us as people. 10-year-old Joel was still Joel, still me. 20-year-old Joel, different, but still me. 30-year-old Joel, different, but still me. Growing and evolving and gaining and expressing according to my experiences, and whether that's physical growth or mental growth or the spiritual growth of having to endure through hardship. And 40-year-old Joel, different person, and 50-year-old Joel, also a different person, and each of you have the same thing. Martial arts is going to be the same. So to say that Jeet Kune Do is Bruce's personal expression is very true. It's also my personal expression. It's also your personal expression. Can it be anything you want it to be? Yes, but going back to the very beginning, Jeet Kune Do is a training manual or a training program, and it does have some things that you want to follow. Have I tweaked those along the way? You bet I have. Is it different from what I got from Jerry Poteet? Yes. But I'd say maybe it's evolved. Same essence, but it's grown through my experience of working with students and interacting with other people, whether they be martial artists or just other athletics or other things. All those influences on me have made me different. So, of course, at 50 years old, I'm going to express myself different than I did at 40 or at 35. So, yes, but I can also say Joel Ludlow in 2006, when I first started private training, I started with 2000 with Jerry, but privately training in 2006 versus 2010, different. But even the guy back in 2010, not the same. Even the guy 10 years ago when I moved away from Oklahoma in 2014, not the same. I don't teach, I don't move, I don't express the same way because I'm still growing. And I hope that's what all of you are going to do. I hope you're going to take whatever we chatted about tonight and or whenever you're watching this, and I hope you are taking that in and absorbing all the other facets and sources of information and then making it your own, ta-da, quote unquote stuff, and then learning how to express yourself and continuing to grow because that's really, really cool. I'm going to bounce off here because, like I said, I am a bit sick. My congestion feels a bit more so I think I might go make some dinner and maybe get some decongestants. I've been trying to be off of those today and just see where I'm at. But I think I'm going to go do a little self-care for the evening. Hope you enjoyed this. If so, like, subscribe to this. Probably if you've made it this far in the video, you're going to like and subscribe, but you're already subscribed. But if you haven't checked out my Teachable Jeet Kune Do Fundamentals, if you haven't checked out that training series, it's really, really good. And I put a lot of work into it. It is packed with very concise lessons. Instead of giving you a 10-minute ramble like this is and 10 seconds of information, it's more like a minute and a half of here is the drill. Here's everything you need to know. Work it. And then you go to the next one. So it is really, really great. Again, Evolution JKD on Teachable.